My name is Evelyn Harris. I'm 73 years old, and I've lived in this same little brick house for almost half a century. The floor creaks where my late husband used to pace while reading the morning paper, and the lavender bush outside my window still leans toward the sunlight like it remembers him. That morning began like any other. Quiet, deliberate, the kind of silence only widows understand. I brewed my tea, 2 spoonfuls of honey instead of sugar, and watched the steam blur the face of the clock on the kitchen wall. 9:47 a.m., the same minute my husband's heart had stopped 21 years ago. Every day since, I have met that minute with a prayer and a breath. But on this particular morning, that breath was stolen by a knock. Sharp, urgent, familiar. My daughter Vanessa stood at the door, her eyes red, her smile forced. Behind her, a sleek black car idled at the curb. I saw her husband, Marcus, tapping impatiently on the steering wheel. "Mum," she said, stepping inside before I could answer. "We need to talk." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was practical, clipped, the way someone talks when they've already made a decision and only need your agreement to justify it. I gestured toward the couch. "Tea?" She shook her head. "No time. Things have gotten tight. The business took a hit. Marcus says we need liquidity." She glanced around my modest living room as if calculating its worth. "We'll recover, but right now we need cash." The word cash dropped between us like a stone into still water. I stirred my tea just to have something to do with my hands. Then she said it, words that would echo in me for weeks. "Sell your jewelry, Mama. We need the money." My spoon froze. Somewhere deep in the house, the old clock chimed, and I heard the smallest rattle from the top drawer of my dresser upstairs, the jewelry box. I had not opened it in years, not since the day the hospice. Ital called me Mrs. Harris in the past tense. That box held more than gold. It held my youth, my marriage, my proof that I had once been loved. Vanessa went on talking, something about loans and deadlines, but her voice blurred. I saw instead the gold bangles my mother gave me on my wedding day, the ruby ring my husband bought after our first fight to say sorry without words, the delicate locket that held a secret too heavy for anyone but me to know. That locket. That was the reason my heart did not break completely when she said those words. I placed my teacup down carefully, the china clicking against the saucer. "You think I should sell it all?" I asked. She nodded quickly, relieved I wasn't resisting. "It's just sitting there, Mum. You don't wear it. You've said yourself memories can't be pawned, right?" I smiled faintly. "Ah. But memories are the only things pawnshops can't steal." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Please don't make this hard. We'll pay you back. Promise." Promises. She had inherited those too easily. From a man who kept none. I stood, walking toward my bedroom. The air smelled faintly of lavender and cedar wood polish. In the top drawer, under folded scarves, the jewelry box waited, a chestnut rectangle with brass hinges dull from age. When I lifted the lid, the faint tune of the old music mechanism trembled alive. Clair de lune, barely audible, like a whisper from another life. Each piece inside glowed softly in the morning light that spilled through lace curtains. I ran my fingertips over them, feeling not metal, but memory. The wedding bangles, warm as his laughter. The pearl earrings, cold as the day I buried him. The gold locket, heavy as the truth it carried. Inside that locket lay a folded paper so small and so sacred that even I had forgotten the exact handwriting. My husband's will, the real one, not the copy Marcus once manipulated through their lawyer friend. Years ago I had sealed it inside the locket to protect it from greed. I closed the lid gently, the tune fading. When I returned to the living room, Vanessa stood by the window, scrolling her phone. She looked beautiful, tired, and unreachable, all at once. "I'll think about it," I said. "Mum, please." I held up a hand. I said, I'll think. She pressed her lips together, nodded once, and left. The black car rolled away, leaving exhaust and silence. I sat down, hands trembling not from fear, but from realization. The universe had a strange sense of timing. The very day she asked me to sell my jewelry was the day I realized it was time to reveal what that jewelry truly held. I opened the box once more and whispered to the pieces like old friends. They think you're just gold, I said softly, but you're my witness. The clock struck 10. A breeze from the open window rustled the curtains, and the scent of lavender wrapped around me like an answer. Somewhere deep inside, pain gave way to a quiet, knowing strength. Vanessa believes that she was asking for money. What she didn't know was that she had already sold something far more precious, my trust. Still, I would let her believe she was winning, for now. Because sometimes the only way to teach the value of love is to let the greedy touch its glitter and feel nothing. I closed the box, turned the key, and slid it back beneath the scarves. The music stopped mid-note. She told me, "Sell your jewelry, Mama. We need cash." I smiled, because she didn't know she was asking me to sell the truth. When people talk about wealth, they usually mean numbers. But in my house, wealth was time. Long dinners, slow mornings, words that didn't cost anything but meant everything. My husband, Thomas, believed in simple abundance. He used to say, "Evelyn, a good life is a house that smells of soup and forgiveness." We never had much money, but we had a home that never felt empty. After he passed, the silence changed shape. It wasn't cruel. It was loyal, almost protective. The walls still carried his voice. The garden still bloomed as if waiting for him to come trim the edges. Even the lavender bush by our porch leaned toward the gate each evening, the way he used to stand there with a mug of coffee waiting for Vanessa to come home from school. Vanessa was only 15 then, bright, curious, a little spoiled, but soft-hearted. She'd braid my hair, bring me wildflowers from the field, and tell me that one day she'd build me a house by the sea. I used to smile and tell her, "You already did, sweetheart. You built it right here." But dreams grow differently in different soil. After college, Vanessa met Marcus Hale, tall, charming, and ambitious in the way that makes you dizzy. The first time he visited, he brought me imported chocolates and compliments too polished to be sincere. "Mrs. Harris," he'd said, "you've raised a remarkable daughter. She's the kind of woman who deserves the world." At the time, I took it as admiration. Later, I realized it was assessment. Within months, they married in a rush of expensive flowers and borrowed money. I watched from the front row, holding Thomas's gold watch in my palm, telling myself she was happy, that my only job was to bless her new life. But happiness is loud only for a little while. Then you start to notice the quiet parts. The calls became shorter, the visits less frequent. Vanessa's laughter, once light and girlish, now ride edges, like glass beneath silk. When she did call, it was usually to ask about things, the house, the insurance, the jewelry. "Mom, you should really write down your assets somewhere safe," she'd say, her tone casual, but rehearsed. I told her, "Everything I have is already written where it matters." She laughed, not understanding. I meant her heart. One evening, after months of silence, I received a letter from her, not handwritten but printed. The logo of their company sat on the top, Hale Partners Real Estate Investments. She wanted me to sign as a guarantor for a property loan. That night, I sat on the porch, the lavender scent wrapping around me like memory. I held the paper up to the fading light and said aloud, "Thomas, if you're watching, tell me what to do." The wind stirred the bush beside me, scattering tiny purple petals across my lap. That was answer enough. I didn't sign. When Vanessa called the next morning, her voice was tight. "Mum, why would you embarrass us like that? Marcus said you don't trust us." I said quietly, "Trust isn't a signature, darling. It's what you do when no one's watching." There was silence. Then a click. The call ended. That was the beginning of the invisible wall between us. She stopped coming by as often, and when she did, her eyes searched the house the way a realtor scans square footage, not for comfort, but for potential. The framed photo of her wedding began to tilt on the wall. I never straightened it again. It somehow looked truer that way, slightly off balance. Still, I tried to keep my heart soft. A mother doesn't stop loving because she's disappointed. She learns to love differently, quietly, through prayers instead of gifts. So I kept her favourite marmalade jar on the shelf. I still brewed 2 cups of tea when I sat by the window, even though only one was ever touched. And every Sunday, I polished my jewellery, not because I intended to wear it, but because I liked to see the light catch on old promises. Each piece had a name, a story. The ruby ring was "Forgive Me." The pearl earrings were "Stay." The gold locket, the one that hid Thomas's real will, I called Truth. I wore Truth only once a year on our anniversary. I'd fasten it around my neck, look at myself in the mirror and whisper, "Still here." I didn't know that Vanessa had been watching those moments in silence during her visits, her eyes following the glint of the locket each time. Once she asked, "Why do you still keep that old thing? You could sell it for a fortune." I smiled. Some fortunes don't belong to money. She laughed. "You sound like one of your old storybooks, Mum." "Maybe," I said, "but every fairy tale has a warning hidden in it." She rolled her eyes, kissed my cheek, and left. That was the last time she kissed me without an agenda. A few months later, Marcus convinced her to streamline the family finances. He called it responsible consolidation. I called it what it was, control dressed in spreadsheets. From that point onward, she stopped asking for advice and started asking for access. "Mom, can we see your safety deposit key?" "Mom, and we move some funds temporarily for tax reasons?" "Mum, can you trust us with the documents?" Every mum carried less warmth and more expectation, and each time I'd give her tea and silence, my way of saying no without starting a war. But a storm was coming anyway. I remember one night vividly. Rain against the windows, thunder crawling through the sky. I dreamt of my jewellery box opening by itself, the locket swinging, the paper inside glowing faintly. When I woke, I couldn't tell if it was a dream or a warning. I got up, went to the dresser and unlocked the box. Everything was where it should be. But when I touched the locket, it felt warmer than the rest, as if it remembered its secret. I whispered to it, "Hold steady, my friend. The greedy are coming." The next morning, the phone rang. It was Vanessa. Her voice sounded urgent but sweet, the kind of sweetness that hides something sharp. "Mum, I'll come by tomorrow. We need to talk about money." And that's how it began. The conversation that would unearth every secret I had buried under love. As I hung up, I looked at the photo of her as a child, chocolate on her chin, her father's arm around her shoulders. I touched her face through the glass and said softly, "My darling, I gave you everything I could teach, except how not to betray yourself." The clock struck 9. The house felt smaller, the air heavier, and the lavender scent stronger than ever. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Tomorrow she would ask me to sell my jewellery, and she would have no idea what I had hidden inside it. The next morning, the air carried that strange stillness that comes right before a storm, neither quiet nor loud, just waiting. I woke early, dressed neatly as I always did, and brewed tea with 2 cups again, one for her, one for me. The lavender outside brushed softly against the window pane, almost as if reminding me, "Be gentle, but be ready. At exactly 10, the sound of tires crunching gravel reached my ears, the same black car, the same impatience. Vanessa stepped out in a cream coat that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her hair was sleek, her perfume sharp, confidence sprayed on like armor. Behind her, Marcus trailed, phone in hand, eyes cold. He didn't bother greeting me. He never did, unless he needed something. "Mum," Vanessa began as soon as she crossed the threshold, "we really need to have a serious conversation." Her tone was soft, but I could hear the practiced rhythm of persuasion, the kind of tone salesmen use before handing you a contract. I smiled faintly. "I thought you said you'd come for tea." "We will, of course," she said quickly, "but first things first." She sat on the couch, placing her handbag beside her like a barrier. Marcus stood near the fireplace, scrolling his phone. The fire was unlit. Only cold ash sat there, grey and dull, a fitting backdrop. "We're in a bit of trouble," she began. "The property we invested in, well, it didn't go as planned. The market's unpredictable, Mum, you know that." I nodded slowly. Markets are unpredictable. So are people. Marcus looked up briefly, smirking. "This isn't about people, Mum. It's about liquidity." That word again. Liquidity. I used to teach literature, not finance, but I understood what it meant, turning something solid into something that slips through your fingers. Vanessa reached out and held my hand. "Mum, we need your help. You have the jewelry. You never wear it. If we sell it, we can stabilize everything. It's temporary." I studied her fingers. Manicured, restless, tapping gently against mine as if to keep time with her patience. "Temporary," I repeated. "Like rain or promises." She frowned. "Mum, please don't make this harder. You always said family helps family. You helped me with college, with the wedding. Why stop now?" "I helped because it was love," I said softly. "This sounds like pressure." Marcus's voice cut in, low and irritated. "Look, Mrs. Harris, it's simple math. That jewelry is sitting idle. Gold prices are high. You could liquidate now, help your daughter, and even keep a small portion as security. Everyone wins." "Everyone?" I asked, turning to him. "Do you mean you, Mr. Hale?" His jaw tightened. Vanessa jumped in quickly. "Mum, don't be rude." "I'm not," I said calmly. "I'm just clarifying who everyone is." The silence after that was long. The clock ticked louder than usual. Tick, 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 like a heart learning to doubt. Finally, Vanessa exhaled heavily. "You always think the worst of him. Why can't you trust us? We're your family." "Family is not a word you use to close a deal," I replied quietly. "It's something you prove when money isn't involved." Her eyes glistened, but not from guilt, from frustration. "You know what? Fine. Forget it. Maybe I shouldn't have come." She stood, but I saw her glance at the dresser down the hall, the jewelry box. Her eyes lingered there just a moment too long. "You came this far," I said. "At least finish your tea." She hesitated, then sat back down. The silence thickened as I poured the amber liquid into her cup. She took a sip, her hands trembling slightly. "Mum," she said again, softer this time, "please. We're drowning. Marcus has been trying to keep things together. I know you have savings, but this is faster. The jewelry means a lot to you, I know, but we'll buy it back later, I swear." There it was. The word that never saved anyone. Swear. I turned my gaze toward the window, where sunlight caught the edges of the lavender leaves. "Your father used to say," I murmured, "that desperation reveals what we worship." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "And what's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, meeting her gaze, "you can always tell where someone's heart truly lives, by what they're willing to sell." Her eyes filled, but the tears weren't remorse. They were exhaustion. She was a woman at war with herself, half victim, half conspirator. Marcus sighed dramatically. Evelyn, let's be realistic. You're old. You don't need that jewelry. You can't take it with you. I smiled faintly. No, but I can decide who takes it after me. He scoffed. You're being emotional. This is business. Business, I repeated, setting down my cup. That's what I thought love had turned into. Vanessa broke then. Her voice rose, sharp and trembling. We're not the villains here. We're just trying to survive. You think you're teaching me some moral lesson, but you're just being selfish. What good is gold locked away while your family falls apart? Her words sliced through the room, echoing. I let them linger. I let her see how calm I was. It frightened her more than anger ever could. Finally, I said, if selling my jewelry can save your soul, child, I'll sell it tomorrow. Marcus looked surprised. Vanessa blinked. Really? I nodded. Really. But you must come with me to the pawnshop. No couriers, no middlemen. Just us. Marcus frowned. That's unnecessary. I cut him off, eyes steady. I insist. It's a mother's last luxury. To hand her sacrifices over herself. He shrugged. Fine. Whatever makes you comfortable. Vanessa's face softened. Thank you, Mum. You won't regret this. I smiled gently. I already don't. As they left, the black car disappearing down the road, I closed the door and leaned against it. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from clarity. The pieces were moving exactly as they were meant to. I walked back to my room, opened the jewelry box once more. The soft tune began to play, fragile as breath. I touched the locket, the one that held Thomas's true will, and whispered, It's time, my love. Let them believe they've won. Just a little longer. I spent the rest of the day cleaning each piece. The gold glimmered beneath my fingers, not like treasure, but like memory rising from dust. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like a question. Every whisper of wind against the window carried the same words. Are you ready? I whispered back, yes. At dawn, I dressed with care, the way one dresses for both loss and triumph. I tied my hair neatly, slipped the locket into my palm, and placed it back inside the box, beneath the other ornaments. Before leaving for the pawnshop, I wrote a note and slid it under the box lining. A single sentence only I would ever understand. Gold remembers the hands that last held it. When Vanessa and Marcus arrived, I greeted them with the calmness of someone who had already decided the ending. They saw an old woman preparing to give up her last treasures. But what I held inside that jewelry was a truth powerful enough to destroy every lie they'd built. I wonder, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have given away everything you built just to keep peace? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how your heart would decide. Morning light spilled across my living room like a memory that refused to fade. The black car waited outside again, its engine humming softly, impatiently. I stood at my dresser, hands resting on the jewelry box. The brass key glinted in the light. For a brief moment, I closed my eyes and saw Thomas's face. The last morning we spoke. He was laughing about something small. Burnt toast, I think. And then the phone rang. The hospital. The sound of sirens. The quiet after the storm. I blinked, and the room returned. The lavender's scent drifted in through the window, stronger than usual, as though even the earth knew something sacred was about to be tested. "Ready, Mum?" Vanessa's voice called from the doorway. She stood there, tapping her foot, pretending confidence. Marcus lingered behind her, his phone in hand, scanning messages with the casual cruelty of someone who never doubted his control. I turned the key, opened the lid. The soft tune began. Claire de Lune, trembling as if aware of the betrayal it would witness. Each piece of jewellery shimmered with its own heartbeat. I lifted them slowly. The bangles, the earrings, the rings. Every movement felt like peeling away layers of myself. Vanessa's eyes flickered with something like hunger. "Mom, that's plenty," she murmured. "Not yet," I said softly. "You take all or none." Marcus chuckled. "She's dramatic." "Yes," I said, fastening the lid shut, "and deliberate." I carried the box in both hands, as if it was something alive. Outside, the air smelled of metal and dust. The drive to the pawnshop felt endless. The rhythmic sound of tires on gravel, the hollow echo of her perfume in the closed space, the faint clicking of Marcus's phone. Vanessa tried small talk. "You'll see, Mom. This will help us breathe again. You'll be proud." I smiled faintly. I already was proud, long ago. She flinched, but said nothing. We stopped in front of a narrow shop with a faded sign, Henderson's Exchange Appraisal. The letters were chipped, the window dusty, but the bell above the door still chimed like a greeting from an old friend. Mr. Henderson had known Thomas. He'd repaired my watch once when money was tight and refused to take payment. "Your husband already paid in kindness," he'd said. "A good man. The kind you can still find if you know where to look." Inside, the shop smelled of old paper and metal polish. Henderson looked up from his counter, adjusting his spectacles. "Mrs. Harris," he said warmly. "Been a while." "It has," I said softly. "I need to sell some things today." His eyes moved to the jewellery box, then to my face. He understood without words. "Let's take care of you properly," he said. Marcus stepped forward. "We'll need a quick appraisal, please. Market value, no emotional markup." Henderson gave him a look colder than winter. "Son, in this place, value has never been measured by charts." I hid my smile behind politeness. As Henderson began to lay out the pieces, one by one, Vanessa watched like a hawk. The sound of gold touching glass echoed faintly through the room. I could almost hear my memories landing beside them. Birthdays, anniversaries, the laughter of a younger version of me. "This bangle set," Henderson murmured, weighing it, "is from the 60s, I'd say. Fine craftsmanship. Sentimental, I assume." "Sell it," Marcus interrupted. Henderson's brow furrowed, but he continued. "And this ring? Beautiful. Rare ruby, hand-cut. Your husband must have had good taste." "He did," I whispered. Vanessa smiled tightly. "We'll include that too." Each word from her lips was a thread cutting away another piece of my heart. Still, I nodded. "Yes, include it." Finally, Henderson reached the small velvet pouch that held the gold locket. Truth. He picked it up delicately, turning it under the light. "Ah, this one's different. Looks older, almost antique." Vanessa leaned forward. "What's it worth?" He smiled faintly. "That depends. Some things can't be priced." Marcus sighed loudly. "Everything has a price, just appraise it." Henderson's eyes met mine, just for a heartbeat, and I knew he understood. He'd seen something in my gaze that told him this piece was not what it seemed. "I'll handle this one separately," he said quietly. "It deserves care." Vanessa nodded, distracted by the stack of receipts he was already printing. Marcus reached for his wallet to calculate totals. As Henderson turned away, he whispered low enough for only me to hear. "Is there something inside, Mrs. Harris?" I smiled. "Yes, but it's not for sale." He nodded once. "Understood." He slipped the locket into a small envelope and tucked it gently into the back drawer instead of the counter. I knew it would be safe there. Meanwhile, Vanessa was busy signing forms, her signature looping over and over, her father's handwriting buried under greed. Marcus counted the bills aloud, as if money gained volume when spoken. When they were done, Henderson returned with a sealed envelope. "This is your receipt and the amount due. Mrs. Harris, I'll hold one item for later verification. You'll get a fair adjustment once appraised." Vanessa waved a hand. "That's fine. We trust you." I looked at Henderson. "I do." Outside, the sky had dimmed. Clouds were gathering. Vanessa clutched the envelope of cash as if it were oxygen. "Thank you, Mum," she said, sliding into the car. "You saved us." I didn't reply. On the ride back, the rain began. Gentle at first, then fierce. The windshield blurred and the city lights smeared into streaks of gold and grey, like melted jewellery running down glass. Marcus was talking numbers again. Vanessa nodded mechanically, already scrolling through her phone. Neither of them noticed that I wasn't watching the road. I was watching the reflection of the envelope in the window. Tight, he symbol of what they'd chosen over love. When we reached home, Vanessa kissed my cheek, almost out of habit. "I'll make it up to you," she said softly. I smiled faintly. "I'm sure you will. Someday." As the car drove away, I stood under the porch, the lavender bending under rain, its purple petals sticking to my shoes, the scent mixed with the metallic taste of grief. I went inside and sat by the window. My wrist felt light, my neck bare. For a moment I imagined Thomas sitting across from me, his hands wrapped around his old mug, his smile tired but kind. "They sold it all," I said to him in the quiet. "Everything you gave me." The room answered with thunder, distant but deep. And yet, I didn't feel empty. Because what they had sold was not what mattered. What mattered was what they didn't know they had failed to sell. The truth hidden inside the locket. 3 days later, I received a small envelope in the mail. No sender name, only Henderson's careful handwriting. Inside was a folded note. "Safe. Delivered to legal. Consider it done." I exhaled for the first time in days. My hands trembled as I folded the letter back and tucked it inside my old Bible, between the pages of Proverbs. That evening, Vanessa called. Her voice was unusually bright. "Mom, it worked. We're back on track. Marcus handled everything brilliantly. We'll visit soon." "Of course," I said. "I'll make your favourite marmalade." "Still that old thing?" she laughed. "Still the sweetest thing left in the house," I replied. After the call, I sat in the dark, listening to the rain fade. Somewhere in the distance the church bell tolled. Slow, heavy, final. I whispered to the shadows. They think they've sold gold. But what they've really done is by their own undoing. I closed my eyes and let the silence wrap around me, not as loneliness, but as strength reborn. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive in anger or thunder. Sometimes it hides inside a golden locket, waiting for the right hand to open it. For almost 2 weeks after that day at the pawnshop, the world returned to its rhythm, or at least pretended to. The sun rose, the clock ticked, the lavender bloomed. But something subtle had shifted. The air in my home carried a hum, as if the walls themselves knew that a secret had been set in motion. I moved through my days quietly, reading old letters, polishing the table Thomas had built, and waiting. Waiting, not in fear, but in patience. Vanessa called every few days with cheerful updates. "Marcus found a new investor," she'd say. "We're doing dinners again. You should come, Mum. You'll see how everything's turning around." Her voice had that light, relieved tone, the sound of someone who believed they had outrun consequence. And I would answer softly, "That's wonderful, darling. I'm happy for you." Each call ended the same way, a promise to visit soon, but soon never came. That was fine. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I was waiting for something far older. Truth catching up with greed. It happened on a Wednesday. I was in the garden trimming lavender stems when a car pulled up. Not Vanessa's, not Marcus's, but a plain silver sedan. A man stepped out, carrying a folder and wearing a familiar kindness in his eyes. "Mrs. Harris?" he asked. "Yes?" He extended his hand. "I'm Mr. Dalton, from your late husband's attorney's office. I'm here about the will." I wiped my hands on my apron, heart steady but aware. "The will?" I repeated. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. It was recently submitted for verification by Mr. Henderson. Said it was recovered from a personal belonging you entrusted to him." I smiled faintly. "Ah, the locket." He blinked. "Then you knew?" "I did," I said. "Please, come in." We sat at the kitchen table. He placed the folder before me, the papers crisp and carefully handled. "This document," he began, "is an updated version of your husband's will, dated 3 months before his passing. It revokes the previous filing and outlines a trust, not for your daughter, but for your grandchildren." I nodded slowly. "Our grandchildren," I said softly, as if testing the word. He smiled. "Your foresight protected it. Because this version was notarized but never filed, it remained legally dormant. Until now." "And what happens now?" "Well," he said, "it activates immediately. All financial assets, including residual estate and the sale of your jewelry, are now held under the Harris Generational Fund. Only you and a designated trustee can authorize disbursements. And that trustee isn't your daughter or her husband." I let out a slow breath. "Then who is it?" "Your granddaughter, Maya. She turns 18 next month." For the first time in years, I felt my heart smile. Maya, quiet, thoughtful, still untouched by her parents' games. Thomas had loved her endlessly, said she reminded him of me. I closed my eyes briefly. He always believed goodness skips a generation just to surprise us. Mr. Dalton chuckled. "Your husband must have been a wise man." "He was," I said softly. "He just left his wisdom in strange places." He gathered his papers, standing. "You've done a remarkable thing, Mrs. Harris. Most people hide money to protect themselves. You hid truth to protect legacy." I watched him leave, the lavender scent following him to the door. When the car disappeared down the road, I whispered toward the sunlight. "It's done, Thomas. The gold is gone, but the grace remains." That evening the phone rang. "Vanessa." "Mum!" Her voice was sharp, panicked. "Something's wrong." I steadied my tone. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Marcus just got a call from the bank. They said there's a freeze on our accounts, some legal issue about the jewelry sale. What's going on?" "Oh," I said gently. "Maybe you should ask the attorney." "I did. They said something about a new trust and the will being updated. They said—" Her voice cracked. "They said Dad changed everything before he died. Did you know about this?" I looked out the window. The setting sun was spilling gold over the lavender, like the earth itself was smiling. "Yes," I said softly. "I knew." Silence. Then, You hid it from me." "I protected it for you," I corrected. "And for the ones who will come after you. But you chose money over memory, Vanessa. The law chose truth." "Mum, you can fix this. Tell them it's a mistake. Marcus is furious. He said you're being cruel." "Cruel," I repeated. "Is that what love becomes when it refuses to be used?" Her voice broke. "We're ruined. You don't understand. We needed that money." I cut her off quietly. "I understand perfectly. You needed money. I needed peace. We both got what we came for." Then, gentler. You'll survive this, Vanessa, but only if you stop worshipping what can't love you back. The line went silent. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, almost childlike, "Why, Mum? Why didn't you trust me?" I felt my throat tighten. "Because you stopped being my daughter the moment you started treating me like an account." The click that followed wasn't loud, but it echoed in every corner of my heart. Days passed. Rumours travelled faster than forgiveness. Marcus tried to contest the will. He failed. The law sided with the signed document, with the notarization, with the quiet locket that had slept for 2 decades. The irony was poetic. The jewellery they'd sold had financed their own downfall. Every coin counted from my sacrifice went into a trust they couldn't touch. Vanessa stopped calling, but Maya, sweet Maya, came. She arrived one afternoon, her eyes shy but kind, carrying a bouquet of lavender she'd picked herself. "Grandma," she said softly, "Dad's angry. Mum's sad. I don't really understand what happened, but I wanted to see you." I hugged her tightly, inhaling the scent of youth and innocence. "That's all that matters, darling, that you came." She pulled back, smiling faintly. "Mum said you hid something important, is that true?" "Yes," I said, "but it wasn't what she thinks." "What was it?" "Love," I said simply. "Love, written in ink." She tilted her head. "Like a story?" "Exactly," I smiled. "A story that outlived greed." She sat by the window, tracing patterns in the dust on the table. "Will you tell me?" "One day," I promised. "For now, just remember. People can lose their way, but gold can't guide them. Only conscience can." Maya nodded, absorbing the weight of something she didn't yet understand, but would one day live by. That night, I lit a candle beside Thomas's photo. The flame flickered gently, reflecting on the glass. "I kept your promise," I whispered. "You said to protect what's pure. I did." The lavender outside swayed in rhythm with the wind, and for a moment I could almost hear his voice, steady, proud. "You turned gold into grace, Evelyn. That's how we win." I smiled, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. Because the truth wasn't about the money or the law. It was about the lesson, that love, when betrayed, doesn't always scream. Sometimes it simply waits to be proven right. And that night, in the soft hum of the house we built, justice felt less like revenge and more like balance. Restored. It was a Sunday evening when she came. No warning, no call, no car idling politely outside. Just the sound of the front gate slamming and heels hitting the gravel hard, the rhythm of confrontation. The lavender bush trembled in her wake. I was sitting in the living room, folding linen napkins, when the door burst open. "Mum!" Vanessa's voice was sharp, almost cracked. "How could you?" She stood there, rain in her hair, fury in her eyes. Her lipstick was smudged, her hands shook around a crumpled document, a photocopy of the will. I set the napkins aside carefully. "You should have knocked, darling. The doorbell still works." "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've done to us?" I looked at her, this woman who had once been my baby girl, and saw something strange, fear wearing the mask of anger. "Yes," I said quietly. "I know exactly what I've done." "You've ruined us," she shouted. "Marcus is furious. The investors pulled out. Our accounts are frozen. We might lose the house." "Ah," I murmured. "So you've finally learned that paper can burn." Her breath caught, her voice trembling. "You lied to me." "No," I said, rising slowly. I kept a truth you weren't ready to hold. She took a step closer, eyes wide with disbelief. You planned this, didn't you? You hid the will. You went to that pawn shop. You made me look like a fool. I stopped her gently. You made yourself look like a fool. I only gave you the stage. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the ticking of the clock. Steady, merciless. She dropped onto the couch, covering her face. I just wanted to fix things, she said between tears. Marcus said if we could just get a little more. Money, I finished for her. Always money. She looked up, her face wet and raw. You think I'm evil? You think I'm greedy? No, I said softly. I think you are lost. That stopped her. You don't remember, I continued, but when you were a child you once broke my mirror by accident. You cried so hard you could barely speak. I told you not to worry, that mirrors only break when they've seen too much truth. She blinked, confused. Well, I said, here we are again. Another mirror broken, but this time the reflection isn't glass. It's you. Her lip trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said, but that doesn't make the wound smaller. For a long time we sat in silence. The rain outside softened into a drizzle. I could hear the lavender brushing gently against the porch, a sound I'd always loved. Then she whispered, Was any of it real, Mum? The love? The trust? All of it, I said. That's what makes betrayal possible. Her shoulders slumped, the anger dissolving into something worse, remorse. I thought you'd forgive me. I have, I said simply. That's why you're here. She looked up sharply. You... what? Forgiveness doesn't mean returning what's lost, I said. It means refusing to let it rot inside you. Tears slid down her cheeks. I don't deserve it. Maybe not. But you need it. I reached for a napkin and handed it to her. She took it with shaking hands, her rings clinking against each other, tiny golden ghosts of the jewellery she'd sold. I kept one thing, I said after a pause. She frowned. What? I reached into my blouse pocket and drew out the smallest chain, a simple gold link with a single pearl. Your father's last gift. Her breath hitched. He gave it to me the night before he passed, I said. Said, if she ever loses her way, give her something honest to wear. I walked to her slowly and placed the chain in her palm. It's not worth much, but it's clean, never pawned, never promised, never stained by lies. She stared at it for a long time. Then softly, I don't deserve this either. No, I said. But maybe wearing it will remind you to become someone who does. Her sobs came quietly. Not dramatic, but real. The kind that come from a soul cracking open for the first time in years. When she finally spoke again, her voice was small. What do I do now? I smiled sadly. Start by apologizing to yourself. That's where all real repentance begins. She nodded, clutching the chain as if holding a lifeline. Outside, the last of the storm passed. The light from the window fell across her face, and for the first time, I saw a shadow of the girl she used to be, the one who brought me wildflowers and laughter instead of excuses. She looked around the room, the same room where she had once practiced piano, where her father had danced with her on his birthday, where love had once lived freely. Then she said, almost in a whisper, I remember everything now. I smiled gently. Good. Memory is the only inheritance no one can steal. She stood slowly, looking dazed but lighter. I'll go home, she said. I need to think. I nodded. That's all I ever wanted. At the door, she paused, turning back to me. Will you ever tell Maya? About the will? No, she said quietly. About what I did. I looked at her, not as the woman who betrayed me, but as the child who had simply forgotten what love was made of. She'll know, I said softly. Not because I'll tell her, but because you will. Our eyes met for one long, quiet moment, a bridge between ruin and redemption. Then she left. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it. The lavender's scent drifted in through the small crack by the hinge. The house was silent again, but this time it wasn't empty. I walked to the hallway mirror. It was old, spotted, and cracked at the corner. My reflection shimmered, part truth, part time. For years that mirror had shown me the woman who waited to be respected. Now it showed me the woman who no longer needed to be. I touched the crack gently, tracing it with my fingertip. You were right, Thomas, I whispered. Sometimes things must break to show what's real beneath. The reflection stared back, calm, weathered, free. And in that moment, I understood something simple but eternal. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's what separates the broken from the bitter. The mirror gleamed once in the evening light. A final flicker. A quiet applause for a truth too long silenced. And then settled into peace. A month passed before I saw her again. The leaves had started to fall, brushing against the porch in soft golden whispers. The lavender bush was fading now, its last bloom bending toward the ground like an old friend bowing goodbye. I was sitting by the window, stitching a tablecloth that had been half finished for years, when I heard the gate creak. No heels this time, just slow footsteps, hesitant, barefoot. Vanessa stood there in the doorway, her face softer, her eyes red but clear. She wasn't wearing makeup, no designer coat, no perfume, just a simple cardigan and the pearl chain around her neck. Hi, Mom, she said quietly. Hi, sweetheart. Can I come in? I smiled. You never have to ask. She stepped inside like someone entering a sacred place. Her hands shook slightly as she held out a small paper bag. I brought something. Inside was a jar of marmalade. My recipe, the same one she used to beg for as a child. I made it myself, she said. It's not perfect. I held the jar in both hands, the weight of it warmer than gold. Neither am I. We sat together on the couch. For a while we didn't speak. The quiet between us felt different now, not heavy, but healing. She finally said, Marcus left. I nodded slowly. I thought he might. He blamed me for everything, the business, the trust, the money. But the truth is, it wasn't him, not all of it. I let him teach me how to measure love in numbers. And now? I asked gently. She smiled sadly. Now I'm trying to count differently. Outside, a breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint scent of rain. Maya's been helping me, she continued. She said you told her stories about Dad. She asked me why I never told her mine. I looked at her carefully. And what did you say? I told her, Vanessa said softly, that sometimes it takes losing everything to remember what we already had. I reached out and okay her hand. Then maybe, child, you found the only kind of wealth that lasts. She nodded, tears spilling silently. We sat there until the light changed. That soft, honey-coloured glow that used to fill the house when Thomas came home from work. For a brief moment, it felt as if time had folded back on itself, as if he were sitting with us again, smiling at the peace that had finally returned. Vanessa broke the silence. Mum, what will happen to the trust now? It will grow, I said. It's not just money. It's protection. For Maya. And one day, for her children. That's your father's legacy. Not gold. Not property. Protection. She traced the chain around her neck thoughtfully. You were right. Gold fades. But lessons don't, I finished. She smiled through tears. You always know how to end my sentences. It's a mother's habit, I said gently. We finish what our children begin. Later that evening, after she left, I walked into the garden. The sky was bruised purple, the kind of twilight that feels like a prayer. I knelt beside the lavender bush, old, thin, but still fragrant. I clipped the last bloom and held it up to the fading light. We made it, Thomas, I whispered. She found her way home. The wind rustled softly through the branches, carrying the scent of lavender through the air, a scent that had been witness to everything. Love, loss, betrayal, and now forgiveness. I went back inside, placed the lavender bloom beside the jar of marmalade on the table, and poured myself a cup of tea. The steam rose, curling upward like a silent hymn. The house no longer felt like a monument to grief. It felt like what it always was, a place where love had simply learned new shapes. I looked around at the walls, the photographs, the old clock ticking steadily, and thought about everything that had changed. Not much, really, just everything that mattered. The next morning I heard a knock, gentle, rhythmic. When I opened the door, Maya stood there, holding a small envelope. Grandma, she said, smiling, Mum told me to give you this. Inside was a handwritten note, Vanessa's handwriting, uneven and tear-stained. Mum, thank you for teaching me that love doesn't die when trust does. It only goes quiet, waiting for us to be brave enough to hear it again. At the bottom, a line in smaller script. You were right. The real gold was never in the box. I pressed the note to my chest and felt the years collapse into one heartbeat. The young mother, the widow, the betrayed, the forgiver, all of them standing together for a moment inside me. I looked at Maya and smiled. Tell your mother I read it. She said you would, Maya replied, beaming. As she ran off down the path, sunlight caught the chain around her neck, the same chain I had once given her mother. The pearl glowed softly, catching the light like a secret that had finally forgiven its keeper. That night I wrote one last line in my journal, not a confession, not a wish, but a simple truth. What I hid inside that jewelry was never gold or paper. It was proof that love, when betrayed, can still choose to bless instead of burn. I closed the book, blew out the candle, and let the darkness settle gently around me, not as an ending, but as peace. Outside, the lavender swayed again, whispering its usual promise to the wind. Everything that blooms will fall, but not everything that falls is lost. And for the first time in a very long while, I slept, not as a woman guarding her secrets, but as a mother who had finally kept her promise. If this story touched something inside you, stay with me. There are many more stories of mothers, daughters, and the truths we hide in silence. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.